contributing to Afghanistan. And I closed my eyes, not out of boredom, I promise you. I was just to close my eyes, and I listened to Kevin Rudd, the Prime Minister of Australia, speak. And I guarantee you that, again, if you were Rip Van Winkle, waking up after 20 years and somebody said, spot the guy who's not the NATO ally, you would have not. Maybe the accent would have given the game away, Australian accent, but you would not, on the basis of what he said, been able to distinguish between him and a NATO ally. The degree of sort of intellectual interoperability was quite remarkable. Now, of course, one of the reasons why this distinction has broken down is because NATO today has been doing essentially non-Article 5 missions. And of course, what brings the members together is this commitment to Article 5 for collective defence. But to the extent we're doing UN-sanctioned peacekeeping operations, non-Article 5, clearly there's no reason why partners should not be fully involved. But the real issue, of course, is no taxation without representation, the famous motto of the Boston Tea Party of 1774. It's very difficult for Finland or Sweden or Australia to contribute troops to a dangerous mission like Afghanistan, and then there's a crisis and maybe some of their troops are killed, and then the government has to tell the parliament, oh yeah, but NATO didn't give us any intelligence, or oh well, but we weren't in the command structure, we were treated as second-class citizens. Wait, equality of sacrifice, but inequality of participation, that won't work. And so as the partners have been prepared to take on the riskier roles, clearly, they've said, okay, guys, but, we want to have a seat at the table here. We want to be part of the action. We don't want to be reduced to just rubber stamping what you people have decided. And indeed, in Afghanistan, we recognised the logic of that. And when we had our NATO summit in Bucharest, we worked on a strategy where the partners were involved right from the very beginning. They wrote it with us. They weren't simply asked to approve the thing at the end. But having sort of, what the Lord giveth, the Lord cannot taketh away. And so having brought the partners so close to the action, it's going to be very difficult once Afghanistan is over to say, okay, that was all very nice, but now you go back to being on the outside. So clearly, the distinction between partners and allies is going to break down. And thirdly, allies and partners are increasingly getting together to launch initiatives where it's not just partners suggesting things, but they get together with allies together. For example, like the Nordic countries. Sweden is not a NATO member, but there's very little difference between Sweden, Finland, Norway, Iceland, Denmark, the Nordic countries when it comes to their views on security. So you increasingly find, therefore, that the initiatives are these joint ones. Now, I don't necessarily think that there's any danger in this. Indeed, to be frank, again, it's not really very likely that Sweden or Austria or Finland, not to talk about Ireland, are going to sort of give up neutrality anytime soon and decide to join NATO. So to some degree, to say to partners, you've got to join the organisation to get all of the benefits, would be shooting ourselves in the foot. Because essentially we need the partners, particularly if you look at NATO defence budgets today, and therefore we have to be flexible as to how we make that happen. And we should not expect countries to immediately go from partnership to membership. Some will, that's clear, but some won't. But sometimes, let's be honest, the countries that have the most to contribute have the best militaries, the most advanced economies, are precisely those that do not want to become NATO members, at least not in the near future. So again, we would be shooting ourselves in the foot to say that, we can only consult you and if you tell us that your aim is to become a NATO member. So pragmatism is the name of the game here. The next problem that has come up is that as partners are increasingly contributing to operations, there is the danger for NATO to say, oh, well, we're only interested in the partners that contribute to operations. That would be very tempting. OK, we take you seriously because you've got soldiers in Helmand. Yes, obviously. But there are a lot of partners that, for various reasons, can't have soldiers in Helmand. Israel cannot put soldiers in a Muslim country for obvious political reasons. But should we neglect Israel as a result? No, clearly not. Indeed, the Israelis are giving NATO enormous assistance at the moment on improvised explosive devices, what terrorists use. In Afghanistan, the terrorists, the Taliban, are using successfully, as they have in Iraq, these improvised explosive devices, roadside bombs. Most of the casualties come from those. The Israelis have had that problem for years, so they are far more technically advanced than many NATO countries in how you deal with that. So clearly, we cannot have an arrangement whereby the only partners that matter are those that contribute troops. The Central Asian countries do not put troops in Afghanistan. But if we're looking at energy security in the 21st century, very difficult to look at that without a good dialogue with the Central Asian countries. I could give several other examples. So NATO has to be careful that we don't have sort of two types of partnership. One in operations, one going towards membership, and anybody who sort of falls between the cracks, who's sort of not in either category, feels sort of neglected or left out, because they are important for other reasons as well. Particularly the Muslim countries, where the partnership is a valuable instrument. And you've seen the EU trying to do the same with the Barcelona process. You've seen President Sarkozy with his Union of the Mediterranean. The EU is going through the same thing. How can we use these mechanisms to bridge the cultural divide between Europe and our Arab and Muslim neighbours to the south and to the east? The partnership can help in that respect. The next issue, and is this one, is one that if any of you sort of read at the moment the academic literature or even the Financial Times in the last couple of days, you will see that this is one of the hot issues in international security. Is the future of NATO to become an alliance of democracies? This idea has been percolating around in the United States for some time, but what is remarkable is it's now been taken up both by the liberal democratic establishment that was very much present in the Clinton years, but also by John McCain and the Republicans and many in the conservative movement. You may have seen in the Financial Times a couple of days ago that the well-known American analyst Robert Kagan, the Mars-Venus man, published a piece advocating an alliance of democracies. And John McCain, recently in Los Angeles, made a speech saying that his foreign policy would be to work in the same vein. Now, some people sort of, when they think, aha, where is this alliance of democracies going to come from, look at this global partnership and think, aha, that's it. We've got the Australians in Afghanistan, the Israelis have a relationship with NATO, the Japanese are involved, so let's institutionalize this. And indeed, a couple of years ago, the United States came up with an idea called the Security Providers Forum, which would have been another one of these new institutions in NATO, which would have been exactly for that purpose, to bring the countries together on a permanent basis. If we're doing Afghanistan together, why not do proliferation together? Why not do terrorism together? Why not do climate change together? Why not do whatever, energy or cyber defense, all of the issues of the modern world? It's a very, let's